Peace to you, dear friends. I'm happy to be able to meet you again and to share with you the greetings of the monks of Mount Angel as we are moving with you together toward Holy Easter. And what I have been offering you in these last visits every week is a meditation on the Sunday Gospels of Lent, setting a tone for us week by week. The scriptural texts, primarily the Gospels, which are moving the catechumens elected for baptism toward their baptism at the Paschal Vigil, and which are moving all of us, the baptized, to the joy of Easter and the renewal of our own baptism. Today the story I want to remember with you, and that will be heard on the 5th Sunday of Lent, is Jesus' raising of Lazarus. And you see we're kind of on, this is from chapter 11 of John's Gospel. You see we're kind of on a pretty intense roll here. All of this is from John's Gospel. On the third Sunday, the encounter of the Samaritan woman at the well and Jesus offering living water. On the fourth Sunday, the man born blind, cured of his blindness, Jesus, the light of the world. And more intense still, Jesus raising a man from the dead. But the story is magnificently told. It begins with this line. Now, a man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany. And as is always the case with John's Gospel, any line is going to have deep levels of meaning. Now, a man was sick. Hey gang, this is humanity. This is us. And we're meant to see ourselves in the position of Lazarus through this story. So think of that as I tell this story. I'm going to follow John's way of telling it, which is masterful storytelling. So it begins. Now a man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, and his sisters, Martha and Mary, sent word to Jesus saying, Master, the one whom you love is sick. There's another beautiful line for us to cling to in hope. Lazarus, or we are the one that Jesus loves. And Jesus is far away from Bethany. And he says, he's with his disciples, and he says to his disciples, this sickness is not to end in death. Mysterious. And then he lingers there. Like the girls sent him word that Lazarus was sick so that he'd come. And he intentionally stays 2 more days. It would seem to give Lazarus time to actually die so he can work a bigger miracle. Anyhow, that's not said, but it's between the lines. And so when Jesus finally decides to go to Bethany, he says, our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to wake him. And the disciples, they kind of, typically they don't get it. They say, oh, if he's asleep, that's good for him. He'll get well. So Jesus said, no, Lazarus is dead. And I am going to wake him. So the drama heightens. Jesus approaches Bethany. Mary hears of it. She's at home weeping with her sister. Martha and Mary both hear it. Martha hears of it and runs out to meet Jesus before he can get to the house. And she says to him, this is so moving. She says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Just pouring out her anguish. And Jesus says, your brother will rise again. She says, I know he will rise again on the last day. And then Jesus interrupts her. She's going to say, we all have hope in the future. No, Jesus interrupts her and says, Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. Implying, hey, I'm here. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. Do you believe this? He says to her. Now there's a question for catechumens, isn't it? Do you believe this about Jesus? It's a question not only for catechumens, it's a question for all of us, huh? Whoever believes in Jesus, even if he dies, will live. Do you believe this? Martha answered, yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God. You think, okay, that's a good part of the story. But now another scene elsewhere. Mary, I keep getting the names mixed up. I wish they didn't both begin with him. Anyway, Martha sends to Mary, and she says secretly, the Master is asking for you. So now Mary comes out, leaves home quickly, and goes out to meet Jesus. And there's people at home keeping her company. And they say, oh, she's going to the tomb to weep. But no, she goes to meet Jesus. And she says to Jesus the very same things that Martha had said. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. This time, he doesn't engage her in any discussion. He just says, well, where is he? Where have you laid him? And the text tells us that that they go toward the tomb, and everybody's weeping. The friends of Lazarus are there, Martha and Mary. Everybody's weeping. And Jesus becomes deeply perturbed and troubled, it says. This is so important for us because we see Jesus deep inside our own humanity and troubled by it and moved by death, moved by our death. And then the text says very carefully, it says, he was perturbed and troubled of spirit, and Jesus wept. But, by the way, that is supposedly, I've never checked it out, the shortest verse in the whole Bible. I don't know how any verse could be longer. Jesus wept. You can check it out. Chapter 11, verse 35, the shortest verse in the Bible. If you're ever on Jeopardy, that's the answer. I shouldn't be joking around because we're right here at the heart of the story. But see, this is a story that ends well, and the joy is already felt there. But so moving. And Jesus wept. You know what everyone says about that? They observed it and they say, see how much Jesus loved him. The catechumens headed for baptism, this is a story about them. Each of us, this is a story about us. See how much Jesus loves us. He weeps at our condition of death. And then you can feel in the way the story moves next that a kind of determination comes into Jesus. It says, perturbed. It says it again. Perturbed again. He says, take the stone away from covering the tomb. Take the stone away. And Martha says, no, Lord, he's been dead 4 days. There will be a stench. He says, take the stone away. So Jesus is about to act. This is magnificent. And then he says a prayer out loud so everyone can hear him. He says, Father, I thank you that you hear me. He's about to raise Lazarus. We know that. But he wants to make it clear to the crowd that it's because of his relationship with the Father. He's asking the Father to do this. Jesus and the Father always work together. Father, I thank you for having heard me. And he says, I know you always hear me. But then this is funny. He said, I'm praying out loud, though, so that they can hear that I'm talking to you. And as it were, putting the Father on the spot to act. But then he just says, because the tomb is now open, he cries out in a loud voice. That's what the text says. He cries out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man comes out, bound in burial clothes, and his head is bound in burial clothes. And then in a sovereign way, Jesus just says, untie him and set him free. And many came to believe in him. The story finishes. Okay, well, if we're Lazarus And we are. This is good news for us. But here, I want to leave you with a challenge today. Yes, this is the meaning of our baptism. Yes, we're moving toward Holy Easter and this kind of encounter with Jesus, who is the resurrection and the life. But when I say we're like Lazarus, maybe we're only halfway like Lazarus, by which I mean dead in the tomb. And if we hear, sometimes I think we live our life this way around the kind of graces that are offered us. If we hear a voice that says to us, dead, come out, we somehow implicitly answer, I can't, I'm dead. Listen, let Jesus wake us from the dead. Come out. These are Jesus' words to us. I have to finish with a funny story, but there's a point to it. Years ago, decades ago, on the 5th Sunday of Easter here at Mount Angel, a deacon was reading this gospel. And he was a new deacon, and he was very nervous. And we knew he was nervous, and we encouraged him along. And he also always confessed to us that he suffered from dyslexia. And this made it really hard for him to read, especially when he was nervous. And anyhow, he's reading this gospel, and it's pretty rough. And we're sort of trying to keep ourselves focused and listening. This happens in the liturgy sometimes. It's okay, God's working anyway. But anyway, we got to the climax, and by this time you think, oh my God, is Lazarus going to make it out or not? And finally, at the end, when the climax come, and he'd made a number of mistakes, I'm not quite sure what they were, but it's still going, and we're all listening, and he says, when he says, come out, and he reads somehow, and the dead man's sister came out. And we go, no, the dead man came out. And then he says, and here's where the dyslexia kicked in an unfortunate way, but hidden blessing. Jesus said, untie him and let him go free. And he recited instead, unite him and let him go free. See, untie, unite, well, let him go free. Anyway, why would I tell you that? Because we all talked about it, and I remember it every time I hear the gospel. Well, there's a meaning in that too. Unite him and let him go free. You know, the way we experience death even now in our lives is we're so distracted, so unsettled, going in every direction. So the resurrection and the life, Jesus can unite each one of us in himself and set us free. This is certainly our prayer for you from Mount Angel as we move toward Holy Easter.